So what we're going to talk about, the agenda for today is really pretty simple. I'm just going to walk through the online application. I'm going to show you some pieces of the eligibility portion as well as when people enroll in a qualified health plan, what that looks like. So the first piece that we want to do is just give you a little high-level overview of what how the online application works and what its function is. So one of the key things to know is that the questions are displayed based on the information the applicants provide. So that means that it's dynamic, and it will show and hide questions based on the applicant's particular circumstances. It'll show and hide questions based on eligibility rules for the state, as well as which program they're likely qualified for. So there's two paths. Part of the dynamic quality is that there's two paths. One is applying for paying for health coverage, also known as financial assistance, and the other is applying to enroll in a qualified health plan without financial assistance. And so those two paths, it's one single streamlined application, which is how we refer to it, but it does present different questions based on how you've responded. On the financial assistance path, particular questions are only asked of people who are likely eligible for advanced payments of the premium tax credit, otherwise known as APTC, and cost sharing reductions, or enrolling in a qualified health plan. After the consumer views their eligibility results, there are further steps to enroll in a qualified health plan. If someone is eligible for Medicaid or CHIP, eligible for Medicaid or CHIP, questions appear that are only asked of Medicaid or CHIP people, CHIP-eligible people, and their information is automatically forwarded to the state, and the state will follow up with the consumer. If in certain states, the final eligibility, Medicaid and CHIP eligibility determination is made by the state instead of the marketplace. Okay, so the next slide is the online application flow. And this is to show you kind of a high-level picture of what the structure of the online application is, so that you have a picture in your head a little bit as we walk through different slides. Because as you know, it's an application that has many facets to it, and we won't have time to go through every single screen. And so I wanted to highlight different things. But before we do that, I want to give you a little framework to orient you. So these different boxes that you see in front of us show a flow that depict the online application process. It begins with account creation, which includes identity proofing, where someone who's applying on behalf of other people or for themselves, they need to go through a process of identity proofing. That means answering questions that they would only know the answers to, and ends with consumers seeing their eligibility results and continuing to plan enrollment if they're eligible. At the beginning of the application, the person fills out the application. The person who's filling out the application completes their contact information and indicates whether they're receiving help from an assister, navigator, agent, or broker. They then indicate whether they want to apply for financial assistance or not, and they enter the list of people who are applying for coverage and provide additional details about their household. At the end of the process, the consumer reviews the information they entered, can make changes as they need to, and signs and submits their application. After they submit the application, they see their eligibility notice that tells them which programs they may be eligible for. And then the consumer can then move on to select a qualified health plan if he or she is eligible. If they qualify for Medicaid or CHIP, the marketplace transfers the information to the state Medicaid or CHIP agency, follow up for more information, or send enrollment information to the consumer. So that's the online flow. And then they come to this page where they are asked whether they want to find out if they can get help paying for health coverage. And in our scenario, I've selected yes, so that they can be evaluated for Medicaid, CHIP, or premium tax credit and cost sharing reductions. They would then select no if the applicant wants to enroll in a qualified health plan and does not want help paying for coverage. The last option down at the bottom is I'm not sure, which takes them through a screening tool, and that helps them decide which path to take. Next slide, please. So on this next slide, the person is asked to enter the people who are applying for coverage. And they enter their name, their date of birth, and their relationship to the household contact. It's a simple screen that just shows who's applying for coverage. Here we go. So it shows you the name of the person and the date of birth, and you can both add people. It'll kind of pre-populate the name of the person who's the household contact if they said that they were the person who was applying for coverage as well as other people. Otherwise, it'll just ask you to add people. And so you would add the person's name and their date of birth in here and the relationship to the person who's applying for, who's the household contact. So you've entered all these people in here, and this is just to clarify, these are the people who are applying for health coverage. There are other people who are needed on the application for purposes of eligibility when you go down the financial assistance path. And so the system is smart enough to kind of identify who those people are that it needs to know about, and it'll ask you about them. But for now, you're just putting in who wants to get health coverage. So after this section, after they've entered they enter the family and household section, they enter additional details about each person, such as their sex, social security number if they have one, citizenship and immigration status, and they're asked an optional question about race and ethnicity. And since they're applying for help paying for coverage, they'll also to be asked questions such as whether they plan to file taxes, who's in their tax household, and who they live with. That's for purposes of Medicaid and CHIP, as well as other questions. Household members who don't want to apply for coverage but need to be included for eligibility purposes will be identified during the family and household section. And they are needed, just so you're aware, for purposes of determining household size as well as income for the different programs. So next slide, please. So as part of the family and household section, there's some additional questions to determine whether anyone's pregnant, a full-time student, disabled, or needs long-term care. These are related to Medicaid eligibility. And then right after that is this question, which is about whether anyone on the application is American Indian or Alaska Native. The purpose of this question is to help prompt the system logic to ask additional questions to determine eligibility for additional benefits. Next, I'll show you pages that appear based on someone having selected an individual as American Indian Alaska Native. Again, at this point, it's just to give the system the knowledge that this person identifies as American Indian Alaska Native, and therefore other questions will appear based on which programs they're likely eligible for. Next slide, please. So this screen is to show you what it looks like when someone adds their income. So in order for the financial assistance path, you need to know what someone's income is in order to figure out what programs they may be eligible for. And this is a screen that just shows you the list of the different types of income that are asked, and the person clicks to edit or add additional income, and they list what they make, their frequency, as well as the amount of the income that they make, in whatever frequency or amount it is that they receive it, whether that's hourly, weekly, quarterly, however they receive their income. And the system does the math to figure out. I'll tell you just for your information, it's not something someone needs to know, but in order to get through the process, but that the system is basically looking at two things. It's looking at someone's current monthly income for the purposes of Medicaid and CHIP. So it looks at what they make this month. And then it also is looking at their yearly income to figure out what they might be eligible for in terms of tax credits and cost sharing reductions. So if we're in 2014 right now, and we'd be looking at the year of 2014, how much does someone estimate they're going to make for that year? And that's how we figure out how much tax credit or cost sharing reductions they might be eligible for. Okay, so next screen, please. So there's also this question that appears in the income section, and this is one of the first examples of a question that will appear based on whether someone has self-identified as American Indian or Alaska Native. So it's a question that is to determine whether someone has received income from any of these sources, and I'll read it for you in case you can't read the screen. It says, per capita, has anyone received any income from these sources? And it says per capita payments from the tribe that come from natural resources, usage rights, leases, or royalties, payments from natural resources, farming, ranching, fishing, leases, or royalties from the land designated as Indian land by the Department of the Interior, including reservations and former reservations. and money from selling things that have cultural significance. And so if someone says that they have money from any of those income sources and they say yes, then it pre-populates the income they already have told us about, and then it asks us how much of that is from these sources. And the reason it's doing that is that it's going to actually deduct that amount from their current monthly income for purposes of Medicaid and CHIP. So it's actually to their benefit to report that income to us so that we can reduce their income by that amount, so that it means they're more likely to, if there reduces their income, it means there are better chances of becoming qualified for Medicaid or CHIP. So that's what that purpose of that screen is. If you could go to the next slide, please. So another question that appears if someone has indicated that they are American Indian or Alaska Native is that they have a question about whether, and this is if someone has gone down, so let me repeat something I said earlier, which is that they've passed that point of where we've collected their income, and they've already told us that they are identify as American Indian Alaska Native, and as a result, we've looked at their income and said, it looks like based on this person's income, they're eligible for tax credits and cost-sharing reductions as opposed to Medicaid and CHIP. So we're going to we send them down a path of additional questions based on their income. And this is one of the questions that appears if someone indicates that they were American Indian Alaska Native on that path for tax credits. So it asks the question if any of these people are a member of a federally recognized tribe, because you have to be a member of a federally recognized tribe in order to be eligible for a tax credit or cost-sharing reductions. So they indicate here, they select the person's names that are identified as a member of a federally recognized tribe. And then if you go to the next screen, after clicking Save and Continue, they see a screen like this where they can select the state in which the tribe, that they're a member of is located. And it doesn't matter if they actually don't live in that state. They can select whatever state their tribe is in. And then they can see a list of tribes associated with this. And just so you know, this is one of the areas where I know many people have helped us with making sure that this list can be improved and updated and reflects the best, most accurate list it can be. And so that was something that's up until, recently I think we had another update to it that some folks helped us with. So thank you to that. Thank you for everyone to that, for those, keeping track of this and helping us keep this list as accurate as possible. So this basically what the person does is they select the state, they select the tribe, and they click Save. And then if you could go to the next screen, then they just select the names of the people who are a member of that tribe. And then, if there was other tribes, they could do the same thing for other people that other people are members of. And then you just click Save and Continue, and the system stores that information. Okay. If you go to the next screen. So this screen has, again, kind of switching gears. We were just on the path of someone's looking like they're eligible for tax credits or cost-sharing reductions. Now you're looking at a screen that they would see if they were potentially eligible for Medicaid and CHIP based on their income. And on this screen, you can see that the person sees a couple additional questions that ask whether or not they've ever gotten a health service from the Indian Health Service, a tribal health program, or urban health program, or through a referral from one of these programs. And then the next if they say no to that question, then another question appears, which is whether they're eligible to receive services from an Indian Health Service, tribal health program, or urban health Indian health program, or referral from one of those programs. And those are for getting certain benefits through Medicaid and CHIP, different cost-sharing benefits that people who are eligible for Medicaid and CHIP are eligible to receive. Next screen, please. So once they've gotten through the additional questions, they get to this eligibility results screen, and this is where they find out what they might be eligible for, or what they are eligible for, I should say. And this is where they click on that button that says View Eligibility Results, and it gives them a notice, and I just gave you a little screenshot of a portion of the notice. And the notice is more like a full PDF file that they can download and print if they care to. And this table shows you kind of an example of what somebody might see. They'd see the person's name. It says, explains that they, are eligible for a special enrollment period. And just to highlight something there, if someone indicates that they are American Indian Alaska Native, the system knows that people who are American Indian or Alaska Native are eligible for monthly special enrollment periods. And so once the people who identified as, the people where I showed you where they identified as member of a federally recognized tribe, those people would show up here as eligible for a special enrollment period. And then you see it talks about cost sharing reductions is the next thing, where it says can choose a health plan with lower co-payments. That's showing the person's eligible for cost sharing reductions. Just to talk about cost sharing reductions for a second, and I'll show you this also when we get in the plans section, people who are American Indian Alaska Native are eligible to receive zero cost sharing reductions for people under 300% FPL, and then over they have limited cost sharing benefits. Then the next part of the box talks about the person being eligible for tax credits and tells them how much of a tax credit they'd be eligible for the year. So that just gives you a sense of the kind of information if they would see. If they were eligible for Medicaid and CHIP, clearly it would say that looks like they're eligible for Medicaid and CHIP, and that the state will be following up with them. So after they've reviewed their notice, they click on the Continue to Enrollment button, and that is, one thing I want to highlight here, sorry, about the notice, is that there is information on the notice about, for American Indians and Alaska Natives, asking for documentation to be sent to the marketplace to provide proof of their membership in a federally recognized tribe. And it gives them instructions and tells them what kinds of documents are possible to send in to provide that documentation. Okay, next slide, please. So after the eligibility results, they get to the to-do list, and this page kind of it's like an instruction sheet. It gives you various steps to go through in order to enroll in a plan. The top part kind of talks about different coverage start dates. Actually, that part is now gone, so my slide's a little out of date because we're already almost to the very end of, well, I guess it'll be gone in about a week, so since we're almost to the end of our open enrollment period. And then the slides, at the very bottom where it says choosing a health plan, you can see where it says set premium tax usage. So each one of these is little steps to walk the person through the process of selecting a plan. Before they select a plan, they do the selection of how much tax credit they want to apply towards their premiums, and then also answer a question. And so each one of these is a little step that they have to go through. So let's imagine the person, in our scenario, they're eligible for a tax credit, and they click on that little button that says Set. And when they do that, they come to the Plan Compare section where they can select how much APTC they get. So if you go to the next slide. So this shows you a screen of what it looks like when someone is eligible for a tax credit, and they here in our scenario we've got Charles and Ruthie, and they're currently eligible for a $299 tax credit each month to be applied towards their premium, and that gets paid directly to the plan to reduce the cost of their premiums. And so they can choose to either use all of that tax credit, and by saying yes, if they want to use all of that tax credit towards their premium every month, or they can say no. Some people prefer to say no if they think their income might change later in the year and they'd rather be conservative about how much tax credit they get in advance. They can choose to use less of it in advance, and then they'll get, when the IRS reconciles their taxes, once they submit their taxes for 2014, they can maybe potentially, depending on if their income remains the same, they could get some more tax credit back through their taxes. or and conversely, someone could find out that they've underestimated how much income they had, and then they might owe a little back at the year when the IRS reconciles their taxes. So anyway, so this is but let's just assume the person has decided that they want to use all their tax credit right now to go towards their premium. And so if you go to the next screen, they'll see this after each of these sections. So after this section, they would have actually gone back to that to-do list that I showed you, and it'll walk them through the next step, which is to select, to provide some additional information. And this is the question that appears about tobacco use. And so it asks the question about whether within the past 6 months have you used tobacco regularly, and then it has a little clarification there about what that means. It says 4 or more times per week on average, excluding religious or ceremonial uses. And so the person can either say yes or no to that, and this is one of the few times when we ask about people's, people to provide this kind of information, or because it can impact their premiums, as it kind of informs you down there at the bottom. So they indicate that they are, whether or not they use tobacco or not. And then if you go to the next screen, and then they move on to the next step, which is the selecting a plan. So they select a plan, and they can view their monthly premium, as you see here, and it can show what it looks like with the tax credit applied. So it says, it shows them kind of what the amount is, and then what it looks like once the tax credit's applied. So their monthly premium, the amount that they'd be paying after the tax credit is applied, is $33.86. So that's obviously helpful that it kind of informs them about what it looks like with or without the tax credit applied. And then also it shows you here where their co-payments, and there's additional information down below that shows what their deductibles are going to be, as well as what if any out-of-pocket costs. So the co-payments here show 0, and so that's just an example of what it would look like with someone who says they're a member of a federally recognized tribe and their income is under 300%. They will qualify for zero cost sharing. So that shows you the co-payments are 0. Okay, so if you could go to the next slide. And we're almost done here. This is actually the last slide. This is the enrollment to-do list again, but this time after you've stepped through you've gotten to the last of the steps, and it's just showing you that you need to go ahead and pay your premium. And so in order for your plan to take effect, so you click on the button that says Pay for Health Plan. Excuse me. And also, I just want to highlight a few things. So that's really the last step, as the person follows through, and when they click on that Pay for Health Plan, it'll either take them directly to the plan's website if they have an online payment system, or it'll take them through steps for information on how to submit a payment for their plan. So I wanted to just highlight a couple things. We also have new functionality. It's not so new anymore, actually, that allows people to submit changes in the online application. And if someone newly indicated that they are American Indian or Alaska Native, the system will determine them eligible for a monthly special enrollment period, so they can change plans if they choose to. Also, I'm going to point out that I didn't cover the paper application today, but the paper application covers the same information as you see online. Appendix B, if someone is filling out the paper application, is really the key important thing to highlight for you guys, which is that's the part of that paper application that is submitted for people who identify as American Indian Alaska Native, and it asks similar questions to what the online process does, where it asks them whether they're a member of a federally recognized tribe, whether they've ever gotten services from IHS, et cetera, and whether their money, whether they have any money that might be considered from tribal sources, so they can, excuse me, so it can be deducted from their Medicaid and CHIP amounts.